Banshee. This is a 2002. We just got done putting all new in the rear slider. I added 2 new chain adjuster bolts along with the nuts. These are brand new. Okay, and if you ever see damaged ones on your Banshee, why don't you go on ahead and replace them? They're $7. If you can buy them as a kit on most online stores, you can also just go to a hardware store and get some nice bolts. But if you order them from online, you know, Rocky Mountain or something like that, or a big supply house that sells ATV parts, you're better off because they give you these really nice hardened bolts. Not that you couldn't find some at the hardware store, but they give you a nice little kit for like $8. So shipped to your door, you don't have to leave your house, and you can carry on with your business. So we've got these replaced, and just remember, when you go to do this, what I use is I got a 17-inch box end wrench. This is a 17-inch head down here also. Both of these are 17-inch bolts. The nuts on these, this is a 17-inch on this side, and the bottom one is going to be a 14. Okay? These adjusters are 13 millimeter. Okay? Keep your Loctite handy. These nuts over here, they're actually locking nuts, but I still put a little dab of Loctite blue on there on everything, especially if these bolts are old or they've been used a few times. So, I mean, if you want to replace them, you can. But if these are, you know, good enough and they're still in usable condition, this is just a little extra insurance. Okay? Have your tape measure handy and your torque wrench along with your torque specs for your. This is your hub carrier, the nuts on each end. Remember, you got the 17 and the 14. The upper one is 85 foot-pounds of torque. The lower one's 43. So when you're doing this, you know, you want to have your tape measure ready. You want to take your wrench, your 17, and you're going to loosen. You're going to loosen the 14 up top. Not my fault. Yeah, the 17 on top. All right. So you're going to loosen this bolt up here. All right, counterclockwise. Then you're going to take your 17, put it on the bottom, okay, and put your 14-inch socket or wrench. I'm just using a socket, it's easier for me. You loosen this up, push down counterclockwise, all right? So you get it fairly loose. You want to clean your ATV and make sure it's cleaner than mine when you do this. It'll help. So once those are loose, then you can take your 13 millimeter wrench, and you can also take a 13 millimeter socket, and you know, while you hold it, make sure you got it the right way. You turn this counterclockwise and you break these lockers loose, and then you just back them out. Okay, that's so. See that? Just back them right out. All right. So to save time, I've already adjusted this chain just to save you a little time, but I'm still going to walk through all the methods. Okay. My method is a little more lengthy than the average guy that does a chain adjustment. I used to be a machinist, so you know, a few thousandths of an inch to me is like 2 inches. So if it's off by a few thousandths of an inch to me, it's like, I look at it as it's off like by the world. So it's just the way my mind goes. But so manufacturer suggests it's between a 1/2 inch to 7/8 of an inch slack on your chain at the center. So from your spindle to the front to the countershaft sprocket, if you want to get technical, if you're at, you know, what is it, 23 inches roughly stock length, so you know, like, what is it, 11.5 or something like that. So you measure from the countershaft sprocket, or from here you can go 11.5 inches. Okay, 11.5, and roughly right here is my center line. Okay, that's where you measure your slack. All right. So if your chain is too tight, once you got all these bolts loosened, you back these adjusters outwards counterclockwise. And remember, this swings in and out from the bottom. The top is fixed. The bottom has slots that allows you to swing it forward backwards. So by putting your pry bar here and pushing down, it'll push it back, or it'll push it forward, giving you more slack in the event you over tighten it or it's too tight. All right. So remember, some people run at an inch, 1.5 inches chain slack. Some people, you know, have their chains dragging on the ground. to each his own. You know, using this swing arm, I understand that by extending it, you may not be able to get a 1/2 inch of slack. Okay, but Yamaha designed this to run with no more than 7/8 of an inch, no less than, you know, no tighter than a 1/2 inch. So, like I said, I went a little ahead, but I'm going to show you how I do my method. So you hold the tape measure there, and then I pull up on it. And I'm right at, let's see right where, I'll tell you exactly where I'm at. .5/8. Okay, which is right on the money. 5/8 of an inch, you're good. And like I said, I touch the tape at the bottom of this chain, and I take and make sure the tape you're fixed and you're solid. You can even use a ruler. And then without moving the tape or your measuring tool, you just lightly pull up on it till it gets kind of snug. Don't put all your, pull up on it with one finger, your index finger. And, you can tell when you're pulling on it too hard. You just want to get the slack out. You know what I mean? If I grab this thing with 2 hands, I can probably pull it up 1.5 inches. You know what I mean? That's not how you're supposed to do it. There's actually a weight for it. If we're going to get really, really technical, use a fish scale. If you want to get that technical, but you really don't have to. But I'm going to save the technical for something that's more important. What you need to be technical about is the alignment of your axle. Okay? See these 2 adjusters? They're not like other manufacturers like the Hondas. They have an eccentric in there. It keeps the axles totally straight. I believe the Raptors, Banshees have the older, this is the older style. Okay? There's aftermarket carriers that have the eccentric. It's just a round carrier, and you stick the pipe in there, or wrench or screwdriver, you turn it, and it turns everything the same. On these, if you turn one in too much and one in too little, you'll tweak your axle, okay, your carrier. You're going to basically be dog walking it, and your chains and your sprockets are going to eventually wear out your wheels, cause all kinds of problems. So a lot of guys that have problems with rollers, chain guides, and wearing out sprockets, and and breaking chains, early on, it's either chain's too tight or the axle's out of whack. So let me show you real quick how I like to do this. All right, so I've got my caliper, okay? You can get these relatively cheap, okay? You can use the marks on the actual chain guides themselves, but I prefer, and that'll work, you know what I mean? On the chain adjusters, there's some little marks on there. But you can, if you don't have a caliper, you can use a tape measure, and you put it up against the flat right above this bolt. You can see this? You zoom in, you can see the flat right up there. See that flat at the top of that lock nut? Okay, you go there, then you line yourself up with the top of the bolt, and you see I'm 1 inch and 1/4. And then you come on this side and do the same thing and measure from roughly the same point. 1 inch and 1/4. And you get as close as you can. On this one, I'm going to show you how close I like to get when it comes to this. I want my axle to run straight. I'm at 1 inch, 201 thousandths. On this side, I'm at 1 inch, 200. So, and there, now they're going to be the same. You don't have to be this accurate, but back in the day I used to be a machinist, and when it came to lining things up, one of the things that we used to pride ourselves on is, trying to get it lined up as close as possible. So there, that's on the money. So once you're on the money, your slack is good, you know what I mean? Then what you can do is, you can lock your adjusters, which is what I'm going to do right now. So you can hold it basically with your wrench, and you don't want it to move. So remember, the bolt's going to move in the direction that you're tightening up the lock nut. Okay? So you want to put a little pressure, grab your adjuster, your lock nut, retaining nut, and you want to give it a little, okay? Just snug it in a little bit. Same for the other side. If you turn this nut and you turn your adjuster bolts, well, now you're off a little bit. So you want to make sure you hold this as good as possible, okay? And on this one, I'm going to push down on it. I mean, pull up on it. So I want to make sure, okay? It doesn't have to be that tight because you're just snugging them in, okay? You know, 7-8 foot-pounds of torque. Okay, little Loctite. I already have some on the threads. I always throw a little bit in the back. Okay, my dad used to be tool and die, and he used to, when he was done making tooling, he would always do that, so it doesn't hurt. Alright, so now the slack is set, your adjusters are set, your axle is true. I mean, if something's wrong, it'll be your engine's off, but it's not. Your axle's set. I mean, you know, according to everything that's here, I pre-measured these bolts, they're on the money. Okay? Alright, so now, one thing you can't forget, you got to torque these bolts. Don't go off the good and tight method. The upper bolts are 85 foot-pounds, the lower are 43. So once again,